Okay, we're ready now to run through the flak hits to our bomber. And again, remember, we're going to use the flak hit to hit the bomber. It's light flak, and we roll on this chart 3 times. Now, each individual roll, not much of a chance to hit, but one of the 3 might hit us. For light flak, we have 2 or 12 hits. So the first roll is 10, that's no hit. The second roll is 8, that's no hit. The third roll is 9, also no hit. So we were not hit at all by the flak. So we've gone through the fighters here in the target zone. We've gone through the flak. The next step, had we been hit, by the way, we'd go to the area affected by flak hit and we'd go from there. But the next step is the actual bomb run itself. And the first thing you need to determine is your bomber on target or is it off target? That's using the bomb run table. And there's an extensive list of modifiers depending on which set of rules you are playing. Remember, we talked earlier on the crew placement sheet about how you could have experienced pilots and lead pilots and all other kinds of fun stuff. Well, that's the die roll modifiers if you're using the lead crew. We're just going to use the standard game modifiers. And there's a list of modifiers here, most of them bad. But we'll just go through them here real quick. We're not out of formation. You can bomb on command from the mission lead bomber. That was the standard back then. So we'll do -2. If you've got some kind of damage to your plane and visibility issues and so on. But we're going to use -2. We go ahead and roll. That's 6 minus 2 is 4. We look on our chart. We are on target with our bombs. So the next page is the actual bombing accuracy table itself. Either on target or off target. There are no modifiers. Go ahead and roll. We roll a 6 on target. 6. 30% of our bombs hit the target. I think I read somewhere, it might even have been in the manual, that the way the U.S. Army Air Forces measured accuracy is if a bomb hit within 1,000 feet of the intended target, it was considered on target. So 30% of our bomb load in this particular instance hit the target within 1,000 feet. That's the end of the bombing run. Now basically we have to come home. We've taken care of delivering our bombs. Now it's time to get us and the plane back home. And it's basically the exact opposite, the reverse of what we've already done. And to show that, you start by turning your plane around on the zone sheet. And you'll work your way back down the zone track. The last thing we did before bomb run was flak. Well, the first thing you're going to do after you drop your bombs is flak. And it's the exact same process as before. There is one extra modifier. It's called light flak or additional flak. And you'll see it listed right here in the flak over the target table. So it's basically just another -1. There's actually a less chance of them hitting you on the way out than on the way in. It is of note, we have not changed zones, so we do not roll for contrails or weather again. And I'm just now filling out a new line on my zone worksheet. Everything else remains the same. The die roll modifier is still -1F. We still have good fighters. We still have haze and no contrails. We're still in formation and we're not below 10,000 feet. But we roll for the flak before rolling for fighters this time with a -1 modifier. We roll a 1, -1. You look on your table, less than 1, ours is 0, no flak. So there is no flak on the way out, which is a good thing, I guess. Once you clear the flak zone in your target zone, you then go back and deal with another fighter attack. And that again goes all the way back to the beginning of the fighter attack area on the combat tables. So we'll go ahead and do that, applying all the appropriate modifiers. We're still at -1 for our zone number. We still have another -1 for the fighter escort, so that's -2. There were no contrails and none of the other modifiers apply, so we're at -2. We roll a 4, -2 is 2. If you look in campaign 1, 2, light. So our fighter resistance here on the way out is light. It was moderate on the way in, it's light on the way out. Next, we determine the number of waves, just like we've done before. We still use all the appropriate modifiers. We are light, so that's -1. We're still in the target zone, so that's +1. And we're still in a low formation, so that's another +1. Overall, that's +1. We roll. 5 + 1 is 6. That comes out as 1 fighter wave. So we'll face 1 wave of fighters out of the target zone on our way back. So we'll roll for the German fighter appearance. Remember, that's the big, long chart under light fighter resistance. So we roll another 11. And again, remember, anything that ends in 1 is none. Anything that ends in 6 might be a random event. So in this case, we rolled an 11. There is no fighters coming up in that wave. That means we are done with zone number 4. Well, we're headed back to the airfield, so we go to zone number 3, and we start all over again, but this time we actually go back to the weather and start with the weather roll. There are no modifiers because our previous weather was haze. We roll a 0. A 0 is 10. 10 is 100% cloud cover. Now we're in zone 3. It has the same modifier as earlier, which is -1B. We are over Belgium. We still have our good fighter cover, but now we have 100% cloud cover. Now you'll recall earlier on the trip into the target, we said if you hit 100% fighter or cloud cover, that you had to roll for mission recall. Well, we're actually on our way home, so we don't have to roll for mission recall. We just go ahead and roll for mechanical failure at this point. 56, no mechanical failure. So we go on to contrails. Contrails is 10, so that's no contrails. We are still in formation. We are still above 10,000 feet. So it's again time to roll for German fighter assistance in zone 3. The modifiers are -1 for the zone, -2 for cloud cover, that's -3 total. Another -1 for good fighter escort, that's -4 total. So we've got a dice roll modifier of -4. 2 minus 4 is -2. That's no fighter resistance, or none. Because there's no fighter resistance, we move on to zone 2. Boy, I thought we were going to see a lot more fighter resistance here, but we're not. So we're in zone 2. We're almost home, and in fact, this will be our last zone. Our die roll modifiers are -2/W. We're out over the English Channel on our way back to our air base. Fighter escort level is good, but we need to roll for weather. Because we had 100% cloud last time, our weather has a +2 modifier. 4 + 2 is 6. That's 50% cloud cover. That would have modifiers over the bomber or over the target, and it will have consequence if we get to the base. But for zone 2 out over the English Channel, it really doesn't matter much. There's no need to roll on the mission recall because we've already dropped our bombs. So let's go ahead for mechanical failure. 34, no mechanical failure. We do still need to roll for contrails because there is one last chance here that fighters may jump us before we get home. 9, no contrails. We are still in formation. We are still above 10,000 feet. So we roll for the last time, zone number 2, for German fighter resistance. We've got a -2 modifier for the zone, a -1 modifier for the cloud, so that's -3, a -1 for fighter escort, so that's -4. We go ahead and roll. That's 10 minus 4 is 6. That's moderate. There's actually a good chance we'll see more fighters here. So it's moderate resistance. We go ahead and look at our number of waves. We've got a +1 for moderate fighter resistance and another +1 for being low formation or low cell. So that's +2. And we roll for that. 8 plus 2 is 10. If you look on the chart here, 10, 3 waves. 3 waves of fighters can jump us here in this last zone. You know, we might make it almost all the way back and we get jumped. So, as we talked about earlier, when you have multiple waves of fighters, you roll on this chart multiple times, and each time will be in the moderate resistance column. So let's go ahead and roll for the first wave of fighters. We roll a 26. Well, this is actually good. We haven't seen this yet, but we talked about it. Anything that ends in a 6 is a random event or no attack. Now, when you get a random event or no attack, if you look over here in the table notes, there will be a line that says random events, no attack. Roll a die, see what happens. 1 through 3, no attack. 4, 5, 6 is a random event. We roll a 3, that's no attack. Now remember, that's just the first wave. No attack on the first wave. We now need to roll for the second wave of fighters, or potential second wave of fighters, you never know. 23. We look on 23, moderate, that's 2 ME210s are coming in this time. So I find my ME210 markers, and on the board for 23, ME210 from 6 o'clock low, and another ME210 at 1:30 low. So we've got 2 fighters coming in this, the second zone, or potentially 2 fighters coming in. Remember, we still have to roll for our fighter cover. And that actually is the next step, is to roll for fighter cover. Our fighter cover is still good. We never left the good fighter cover zone. So we roll a 6. And looking on the chart, and I'm going to show you this, under good cover for 6, it says 1, 0. Now remember, that first number is the number of fighters chased away in the first wave. That second number is the fighters chased away in the second and third waves. Even though this is the first wave of fighters attacking us in this zone, it's actually the second wave. Remember, that first wave was no attack. So in this case, second wave, we use the 0. Neither of these fighters are chased away. So they're both going to come in for an attack. The next step is to place our guns on the board as to who's firing at who. So for 130 low, we get a ball turret gunner, the right waist gunner, and the right cheek gunner. So let me find, there's ball turret, there's right waist, and there's right cheek. So I'll place those 3 right here at the 130 low. The right cheek is the bombardier and navigator area. There's actually 3 machine guns in that compartment, the nose compartment, and only 2 players, meaning only 2 of those 3 guns can fire at any one time. But for right now, those 3 guns are assigned to the 130 low. Now if we go back and look at the 6 o'clock low, that's the ball turret and the tail guns. Now I'll put the tail guns out here, and you'll notice again we've got 3 versus 1, but again that ball turret can fire at either, so I'm going to move the ball turret down here, and we'll have 2 guns firing at each plane coming in. The next step is to figure out the skill level of those fighters. We've got the 130 low and the 6 o'clock low. We'll go ahead and roll for the 130 low. 3 is average. Now we'll roll for the 6 o'clock low. 1 is green. If you remember, this is what the green marker looks like. We'll go ahead and place that green marker next to the 6 o'clock low plane coming in. As with the ace, the 6 o'clock or the green fighter has modifiers, but these modifiers favor us, the bomber, not the pilot. The next step is to go through the defensive fire, and remember the bomber always fires first. I'm going to start up here with the 130 low. The only, well, let me take a look here to be sure, because it's an ME210. There's actually a new modifier in play here. +1 for defensive fire versus an ME210. So all my guns will get a +1 modifier. In addition, because well, no, actually that's it for those two. It's the right waist and the right cheek. They both will get a +1 modifier. We'll go ahead and roll for the right waist gunner first. That's a 12. A 12 is an automatic hit regardless of modifiers. And it's in the notes here as well. Regardless of modifiers, 12 is always a hit. So our right waist gunner made a hit. And we'll go ahead and look at our hit damage. But this time, instead of looking in the FW190 column, we'll look at the ME210 column. And if you kind of look, you can see there are some significant differences. There are no modifiers for this roll. So we roll an 8 on the ME210, and 8 is destroyed. Our right waist gunner destroyed that ME210. It's gone. Now, we talked earlier about the level of detail. One of the things that you can do is if you damage result for a destroyed gun, you can actually roll again and see exactly how that fighter was destroyed. A 2. We hit the tail. The entire tail section broke off. The plane falls out of the sky. And we have to roll for an uncontrolled bailout of the pilot. A 5. Pilot bails out. So in this case, our right waist gunner blew the tail off the plane, but the pilot bailed out over the English Channel. So remember, back here on the mission log sheet, we said there was a status area. That's the right waist gunner got a kill. But it's not a whole kill. It's only a half a kill, because whenever there are multiple guns firing at a fighter and it's destroyed, those guns share equally, because they're said to have fired at the same time, and there's no way to know for sure which one got the actual kill shot. I generally play that the right cheek gun is manned by the bombardier. The left cheek gun is manned by the navigator, and the nose gun is manned by one or the other depending on the situation. And I'm also going to go ahead and mark off my ammunition. And we still have the other plane to go. So we've destroyed this plane. There's no reason to even fire the right cheek. So we'll go ahead and take those markers off the map. We now come down and do the ME210 coming in from 6 o'clock. There are actually several modifiers here that come into play. Not only is it an ME210, that's a +1 modifier. It's coming in from 6 o'clock, and I don't recall if we talked about that modifier or showed it before, but we talked about it. +2 for defensive fire against 6 o'clock. So that's +3 right there for both guns. It's also a green pilot, so it's +4. And one of our guns, the ball turret, is a powered gun. So our ball turret's going to get a +5 modifier. Our tail gun is going to get a +4. Odds are good we're getting a hit or two here. We'll go ahead with ball turret +5. 8 + 5 is 13. That's more than enough for a hit. We roll on the damage table. We roll an 8, and there's actually a +1 modifier here. No, I'm sorry, there's not. But it doesn't matter because 8, just like before, destroyed. So again, we don't have to even roll for the tail gun. The fire from the ball turret destroyed that fighter. And I'll go ahead and mark both the ball turret and the tail turret with a half a kill. So good job, fellas, good job. So we destroyed both of those planes right out of the sky. Well, the first one we tore the tail off. Let's see what we did to the second one. And so again, we'll roll on the destroyed results chart. This time we roll a 5. We hit the left wing. The left wing tears off. The plane corkscrews into uncontrolled dive. And again, roll for a bailout. This time we get a 1. Pilot goes down with the plane and is killed. So we knocked both of those fighters out. Good job. However, we're not done. Remember, there were 3 waves of fighters rolled. That was only the second wave. We've got one more wave of fighters to go. And who knows what can still happen here. So we actually go all the way back again to the beginning of determining how many fighters come in to attack us. We roll a 16. Well, we've already talked about what that 6 means. It's either a random event or no attack. So we'll roll again. Maybe we'll get a random event here and we can check that out. Nope, a 1 is no attack. So that third wave is also no attack. That is the last wave in this zone. And it's zone 2. That means our next step is to move to zone 1. Zone 1 is a special zone. It is always what's called NA/E, meaning no attack over England. Basically, there's no fighter escort needed. You don't need to roll for mechanical fail. Actually, you do need to roll for mechanical fail. And weather and mechanical failure both. So we're going to go ahead and roll for weather. But again, we're going to use that same chart we used at the beginning of the game. The weather over the base. 9, good weather. The weather over the base for landing is very important. We also need to roll for mechanical failure, just on the off chance something breaks on our plane before we get a chance to land the plane. Nope, 44, no mechanical failure. Now, the next step would be contrails. Well, we don't need to roll for contrails because there's going to be no fighter attack. We don't need to roll for fighter attacks because there's no possibility of attack over the airfield. Which means we come to the last step of the mission, the last step of the game, and that is the end of mission tables, 7. And there's several different landing or bailout options. We are landing on land, and we're landing at the airfield. Again, there's a long list of modifiers here that you need to be aware of. But for us, taking a very quick look, none of these landing modifiers matter. It's good weather. We don't have any damage to the plane, and so on. And so we're going to go ahead and land. And in fact, there's not much chance of anything really negative happening here since there's no modifiers. But I'll roll anyways. 11, 2 through 12. Crew and B-17 safe if landing at base. And we're home. That's the end of the mission. I will show you here real quickly my paperwork. Just let me finish it out. Landing okay, weather was good. Here are my zone worksheets. These were the zone worksheets on the outbound leg. This is that first encounter we made in zone 2 on the way out. This is the worksheet as I filled it out for the bomb run and the 2 waves of fighters. Here is the worksheet coming back. And then this was that last 3-wave fighter attack. I apologize for my handwriting. I know it sucks, but it's there. And then our landing zone. I will also show you my mission log sheet here at the end. Take a look at the mission log sheet. Everything is now filled out, including the bombing result. We were on target at 30%. You'll notice I've got the ammunition marked off for the guns that fired, and the crew members that got kills are all listed. So, we didn't get damaged. That's really the one thing we missed here, was going through what happens if a German hits us. But that was the luck of the draw. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you get hit so bad your plane goes down or it crashes on landing. I've had both of those happen in missions. It does happen. Sometimes you get hit by a ton of fighters. Sometimes you get very few like we did today and you don't take a scratch. But I hope this helps. I hope you enjoyed the Target 4 Today playthrough. Let me know what you think, and here's happy hunting.